Welcome back to 50 Days to Rebuild. This is day 6. Day 6, to be honest, hasn't really been the best day for the exercise side of things. I had quite a sore shoulder from when I woke up. Did a lot to try and address this, frankly without much success. But did go through most of the normal exercises somewhat okay, but actually the McGill Big 3 was rather impacted and some other stuff was as well. Again, did try and do a lot of things for this, so tried to work the area. So I really think it's like my teres minor. This is something I've been sort of harping on for a while. I think I've sort of identified as a big issue. Tried massaging through there, tried doing external rotation, just normally, and then at an abducted angle, which was meant to be better for targeting the teres minor. It kind of felt nice to work through there, but didn't really alleviate the pain. From there, also tried doing a lot of different mobilizations from curly starrette, like lots of banded mobilizations to sort of pull the joint into the back of the socket. Often gives me a lot of relief. I think basically it tends to sort of give me some stretch through like the pec minor, for example. Speaking of, I did a chest stretch. Again, felt kind of nice to do, but didn't really actually alleviate that pain. Did try going through the McGill Big 3 as was. Side plank was kind of fine, and nothing wrong with the bird dog, nothing wrong with the curl up, but the bird dog was pretty rough. I tried to replicate that sort of serratus movement, and it really started popping and clicking like it hasn't been before not for a while now. So that was a bit disconcerting that maybe the way I'm cueing it is actually causing some sort of issue. I'm suspicious that this is from the band pull apart or this serratus wall slide, because when I watched it, I don't know, I'm not sure I'm doing it right, basically. And I think some of the right ideas are there around cueing it, but around what that motion should look like we should have protraction, we should have upward rotation, but the execution of actually doing that, because I think we're coming into internal rotation, and even when I'm trying to use a band to stay in external rotation, it's just getting kind of janky. So not ideal, but we got through it today. I'm filming tonight and it's not too bad right now, so hopefully things sort of alleviate. Otherwise, I might have to try and figure something out. I didn't mobilize the joint capsule, so I guess that's always something we could try. Whilst the exercise portion of the day didn't go too great, the readings were actually fantastic. So really looked into stretching and how when we're stretching, if we actually want to get a change in the fascia, we need a long sustained hold, and that once we start stretching, there is a stretch reflex, after which we can eventually get the muscle to relax. We don't want it to stop after that relaxation. We want to stay there for at least 30 to 90 seconds after. So that's going to be a nice applicable thing when I believe I might try stretching again soon. Intriguingly, they're discussing basically like recovery. So if we're under a heavy load, that after about 24 hours, we have a decrease in fascia, which you might be familiar with in the bodybuilding terms. We're getting muscle tear, and then over time we get repair. And after 48 hours, we have more fascia than we did previously. And after 72 hours, we're sort of ready to go. What was very intriguing about this was that heavy load was also included in stretching. Kind of makes sense to me, when we stretch it's a lot of tension, but I just never really considered it that way, that stretching was sort of something that needed recovery from. Also, just really good clarification. I touched on this in the last video, but I was saying that I want elasticity, but I wasn't sure if you should start training elasticity when you don't really have the slow fibers operating properly yet. And based purely on sort of clinical experience, the author of the book said, don't do that. Do the slow stuff first, then do the elastic stuff. So that was just nice to clarify, basically. Again, in this theme of recovery, they're discussing cartilage and ligaments and how they often take a really long time to heal. And that basically this is because they're far from some of the inner cells. And that healing is sort of contingent on capillaries connecting to these inner cells and trying to spread out and basically spread those cells. What I found intriguing about this, even though it wasn't explicitly stated, was that kind of implied that a better vascular system means better repair. That might just be intuitive, but Something I've been thinking about recently, that there's not many cardio things I can do yet, unfortunately, but if I can do something to build up the cardio, then my ability to repair in general might start improving. From an interesting anatomy and fascia perspective, there was a discussion in the book around how muscles and the body is sort of organized in the brain, and it showed that the brain basically has direct nerve linkings with fascicles of muscles. So these are like individual little wraps of muscles or bundles of muscles. So basically the body actually isn't arranged into muscles. This is an artificial arrangement that we as humans have created via dissection. Right? This looks like, oh yeah, that's basically the right spot to cut. That's a muscle. But that's actually not how the brain sees it. It's not seeing the pectoralis. And this was something that I was first introduced to by Gil Hedley's work. It's like, well, there's no reason we couldn't look at, say, the coracoid-pectoralis, which isn't a real muscle, so to speak, but an insertion point is shared, and it's a very tightly related muscle fascicle. Right, so just very interesting idea. Like, we don't necessarily have to feel it perfectly in the pec. We might feel it in a slightly different region. There's nothing wrong with that. The body isn't seeing this in terms of muscle, it's seeing it in terms of these lines of tension and these fascicles. Probably definitely the most amazing thing about this that I really wish was in the first chapter, and not the appendix, was about tensegrity. So this was about tensional compression. If you imagine we had like paddle pop sticks connected to strings, and they were all sort of in like a ball structure with all the different strings attached to all these different paddle pop sticks. This is the model of tensegrity. So it's not related to an external structure. So it's not like a suspension bridge that's connected to the ground. It was as if the suspension bridge was only attached to itself. And this is their model of the body. The bones are essentially these paddle pop sticks, and that these myofascial meridians, so these lines that we've been discussing, those are the cables on the bridge, right? And the body isn't a purely compressional biomechanical structure. It's not like a wall that's just, the force comes directly down on it and it sort of expands to stabilize. And it's not exclusively just this tensional service. It's somewhere in between, and it's connected into itself. What I think is really awesome about this idea and how it really makes sense of the lines is basically that it explains why you could fix an issue by addressing somewhere that makes no sense to be linked to it. So I remember hearing stories when I was younger. It's like, oh, when I got a massage, they pressed on my foot, my neck released. And that made no sense beyond the, everything is connected idea. But when we look at it from a tensegrity perspective, it's, well, if I press on the top of this tensegrity structure, everything else is going to be tensioned, right? And potentially not evenly. And if we overcome some of what it's capable of, there's going to be some issues in the structure. And perhaps the lower part of it goes wrong, like the foot. And then we release the foot, and all of a sudden, we can bear weight on the superior portion, like the neck eases. This isn't a clear-cut explanation of, well, definitely work on this line, which is something that I think might just take time to figure out, but really cool understanding of the body. That's a completely different model than I'm used to, and I think that's really awesome. Within this, they also said that basically what they believe is happening is this is happening down to a cellular level. So there were these little structures connecting to the cytoskeleton of the cell, and the same sort of thing was happening. It was tensioning. But the other part of this is that they think the body has the ability to sort of alternate between what it needs to do. So when it's in like a really heavy weight bearing situation, like a deadlift, it's going to be way more compressional, right? But when it's trying to jump, do something like elastic, it's going to be more into this tensional component that has this ability to sort of alternate between some sort of middle ground, and that's just really cool. This book doesn't really touch on this, it sort of directs elsewhere, but it also touches on lines of latitude. So all of these meridians have been longitudinal, but apparently there are some like latitudinal ones, like around the chest, for example, really common, and then a few sort of around like the eyes, the chin, the neck, around like the umbilicus, that help sort of diffuse tension through the tissues. Again, this won't really touch on too much, but definitely is an area of interest to help explain the rest of how the body functions, and yeah, potentially how we should be relieving some fascia, because like with the chest, for example, they said that it could actually impede on some of these longitudinal lines. So it seems like something that's definitely important to investigate. Yeah, that is basically it for day 6. I think lots of cool learnings. We've essentially finished the anatomy trans. I'll be moving on to hopefully a book about stretching and yoga, and just finishing a few of these pages from the appendix. And yeah, I will see you tomorrow. Thanks for watching.